what's next? I mean, that's what we're going to get into. He does need to fight Jaime Munguia next. I think the winner of that should get Canelo Alvarez. But I think all in all, that still makes for great storylines. Jaime Munguia, Mexican fighter, Berlanga, Puerto Rican fighter. I mean, the storyline's right itself there.
Edgar Berlanga and Jaime Munguia need each other. They're perfect for each other. I think the winner is going to have fewer questions in that fight because I think both of them are going to come in with a lot of questions, even though they're both coming off of very impressive performances. I think Jaime Munguia actually just had one of his best performances earlier when he knocked out John Ryder not that long ago, a fight that we talked about on this show. Then you have Edgar Berlanga coming in, knocking out McCrory. I mean, they both did what they needed to do to really generate some excitement. I feel like both of them are a fight away from being ready, if they're ever going to be ready, for Canelo Alvarez. And the fight should be against each other. Like, these are the two perfect heavy hitters, Puerto Rico versus Mexico. Both of them much maligned for different reasons, level of competition, knockout power, defensive deficiencies, whatever. But I think they both made some strides and made some improvements this year to where I think the winner of their pending fight, hopefully it does happen at some point this year, should fight Canelo Alvarez, be it later this year or next year. I think Canelo Alvarez should have another opponent. We talked about that. We actually just posted a segment on that, so you could check that out, who we think it'll be, whether it's going to be Jamal Charlo this time. But ultimately, and we're going to get to some comments, Edgar Berlanga and Jaime Munguia need to fight. They are perfect for each other. It's one of the most perfect fights you can make in the sport right now in terms of where they are in their careers and in terms of what that fight would then set up in the future, which we know would be a date with Canelo Alvarez.
Yeah, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, Berlanga had his best performance yet of his career, but I still don't think he's ready for Canelo Alvarez. I think Canelo Alvarez at this stage would piece him up, and it would be a bad performance for Berlanga, maybe even possibly a stoppage. The one thing that I did like about this performance from Berlanga also was his defense, but I think Jaime Munguia, I mean, you take a look at the number of fights that he has and the type of fighter he has, he's also a volume guy. I think if him and Berlanga were going to fight, and of course I'm a little bit biased, I always rock with the Mexican fighters. If you watch the show, you know that I love Mexican style boxing, but I just feel like his work rate would be a little bit too much for Berlanga. But nonetheless, these guys would pose a great fight. But I don't think either of them are ready for Canelo Alvarez. But if I had to pick one that was, I would probably pick Jaime Munguia.
I would too, based on he's a former champion. He's got more experience. But Canelo seemingly doesn't want to fight fellow Mexicans. So
exactly,
but I think in a perfect world we would get Berlanga versus Munguia, which we're already getting comments on. We're gonna get to some comments probably like right now.
Yeah, actually. Let's go to David, a friend of the show, just donated. Thank you for your donation, David. Having memo during training helped Big Ed.
Yeah, Edgar Berlanga, again, I thought he was very good tonight. There's still some things defensively that I feel like another fighter might have gotten to, somebody with a little more quickness. But listen, baby steps. I think he showed legitimate improvement, and he's not the guy that needs to knock you out in the first round anymore. He showed, look, he had a good fight against Jason Quigley. It got a little spooky there as the fight went on in between the knockdowns of rounds 5 and 12, but he was able to figure it out. Nearly got a knockout in that fight. But this was a much better showing than even that one.
Yeah, and I agree with David as well. Hope he fights Jaime next. Let's go to Jesus, friend of the show, Jesus. Thanks for joining us tonight and rocking with us. He says, Canelo is waiting for Berlanga, typical cherry picker. Yo, okay, Jesus. So Jesus with the heat tonight.
Yeah, Jesus I appreciate Jesus because every time I know he's leaving a comment, he's going straight for the head. Like here, he's just calling Berlanga and Munguia garbage, which I don't think they're garbage. I know what you're saying there. I don't think they're garbage at all.
This one is kind of interesting though, because this could be kind of right. Berlanga and Munguia, battle of overhype. They are both really overhyped fighters. I think Munguia should have been way
less
further
so
along.
Less so now.
Yeah, I think they've kind of proven themselves within their last
So
fight, right? Both of their last fights.
the loser of this fight, let's make the hypothetical fight right now. The loser of this fight, we're gonna turn around and be like, they were overhyped anyway, whatever. And the winner is gonna be like, oh, maybe they can give Canelo some problems because of the power, whatever the case may be. Like, that's what's gonna happen.
I really am interested in seeing if Canelo does want to fight another Mexican boxer. It's been a while. Like, we were taking a look, and I don't know if Canelo is going to fight another Mexican boxer, but let's go to Tony Ayo. Not quite sure. Bryan, is this no cinnamon yet?
Yeah, no Canelo Alvarez yet is what Tony Ayo is saying, because cinnamon Canelo, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no cinnamon yet. I agree with that. We have Munguia versus Berlanga, no Canelo winner, and Bealey. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if a lot of people, like, we're talking about money, and at the end of the day, this is a business. Everything is a business. I don't think people are lining up to see and Bealey fight Edgar Berlanga or whether Edgar Berlanga or Jaime Munguia winner. We had another comment I want to get to. IMPK 13, and then there's another one here that I want to get to right after from He Got Kicked, so we're going to get to you next. But IMPK 13, friend of the show. I don't think Berlanga gets Canelo next. I would like to see him against Munguia. That was the best version of Berlanga that I've seen, but I don't think he beats Munguia. Okay, so we basically said all the other things. Shantelle, since we've been talking about this, like, do we want to give up our way too early predictions on how do we think this fight goes between?
I say we do it right now. We could do a little bit of a preview right now, and get to, and we'll drop your comments as well if you had to do an early fight preview and you had to make a pick on Munguia or Berlanga. And I'm not quite sure who the favorite would be in this.
I was going to say, what do you think the line is? That's how we got to do it on this show. What do you think the line? I think Munguia is a slight favorite, but I actually think it's.
I bet you a lot of people would vote on the Berlanga knockout, though. Like, they would bet on that.
I think Munguia is probably a favorite, but it's like it's not even 2-1 odds. It's like minus 150. It feels like a 50-50-ish fight, even on the betting scale. Like, the 50-50 fights we got in this year betting wise, like Natasha Jonas, Michaela Mayer, Sinisa Estrada, Yokasta Valle, like, those are 50-50 betting fights. Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence was actually, that's another one.
Yeah, until it wasn't.
Let's, for the sake of because we've talked about this fight, let's actually fantasy book this and give out actual predictions. I think and IMPK said it earlier, minus 150-ish Munguia. I think that's probably right. I do think people bet on Berlanga, and I think a lot of people will just bet on a knockout either way. You could find, like, you'll find a lot of unders, and you'll find a lot of, will this fight go to distance? No, type of bets. So Shantelle, like, what do you think that fight would actually entail, and who do you think ends up winning it if we were to fantasy book this and this happens later this year?
See, I don't know if Jaime Munguia would be the favorite. Like, I think I would pose him. Yes, I would pose him as the betting favorite, but I think a lot of people would take Berlanga. But if I'm taking a look at this fight stylistically, the way that Jaime Munguia fights, and if this fight was happening like it was tonight, Berlanga very patient in that first round. Cool. Like, we never seen him that patient before. That was way too patient. Didn't even throw. Did he throw a punch? I don't know if he did. He tried to, but I don't think he landed anything. I think the way this fight would go is Jaime Munguia right away, as you know, is a pressure fighter. His work rate is really high. He's got power. He mixes it up. Sometimes I feel like he can headhunt a bit, but looked very good in his last fight. Berlanga doesn't throw enough. Right. So if we're taking a look at the cards, I think Berlanga would be fighting off of his back foot in a fight against Jaime Munguia, because Jaime Munguia is going to come forward, and that's the style that he fights with. I also think Jaime Munguia would land a lot on Berlanga. Would Berlanga land a lot on Jaime Munguia? Yes, because they both get hit. But I do think Berlanga's chin is a little bit more sus. So I would take Jaime Munguia to win by stoppage. I would take him to win by stoppage, because I think he'd be throwing combos. I think he'd be landing on Berlanga, and just the edge. And he's had more fights than him too. Like, let's keep that in mind. So there's the experience factor, but it would be a firefight. Like, these guys would be going at each other, throwing power shots. Berlanga, though, looked very tactical in this fight. Like, very tactical. He looked very poised, and I think that makes for a great fight. I just think Jaime Munguia is a level up from Berlanga. And He Got Kicks, says Munguia has good punch selection. I agree, but I also think that Berlanga's punch selection has gotten better too. The thing about it is that Berlanga's chin is still a little bit sus for me after that Coceres drop. There's also been rumors he's been dropped before.
The Erickson Lubin video in sparring, and also as an amateur, he was pretty badly dropped.
Yeah, and Munguia, like the way that he looked in his last fight, I don't know, man. I also think whoever has the better jab in that fight is going to be able to control it. But what are your
jab
thoughts?
Looked really good tonight.
Powerful too. Power jab.
I completely agree in terms of stylistically how it's going to go. Edgar Berlanga is also presenting a slight reach advantage. I think he's going to try and fight on the outside, and he'd be wise to do that. Now, how much success he'll have keeping Jaime Munguia off of him in terms of the pressure, because Jaime Munguia is trying to make that an inside fight all day. I think even though they're both very similar in how they can beat you, this is going to be a clash of styles if they were to fight, because I think Jaime Munguia is going to try to make this a pressure fight on the inside, whereas Edgar Berlanga is going to try to actually pick him off and counter on the outside. We saw a lot of counter punching from Edgar Berlanga today, and that was against McCrory, not Jaime Munguia. He is very much not Jaime Munguia, right? So there was a lot of jabs. Then he let the right hand go. You saw more left hooks to the body. Like, the punch selection and the punch variety was there. I was actually impressed with Edgar Berlanga's boxing ability, which is not something I've said a ton in terms of just pure boxing ability. We know what the power is, but I feel like he's developed in that way. Will he be able to execute those things? Is his boxing ability, his defense in particular, good enough to execute those things?
Defense looked better tonight too, man.
Yeah, and is he good enough to execute those things against Jaime Munguia?
No, because Munguia is just gonna come forward, man. Munguia is like, he's gonna go all out. He's gonna stalk him in the ring, and I want to see Berlanga also. Well, yeah, I want to see him fight a guy like Jaime Munguia, because how is he gonna fight off of his back foot? I really want to see Berlanga try to fight off his back foot and see if he can still be offensive. He does have power, and Munguia does get hit. But it's just
going to outwork him too, and that's going to be a problem. But
on the cards, again, that will be a problem.
Here's the thing, though.
And where's the fight? Is it in Vegas or is it in New York?
Or I don't know. It sucks. There should be more options than that. Like, boxing should be not in just like a couple of different places. But anyway, like,
I'm gonna fight in LA in a minute. Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, because Vegas and Saudi Arabia are taking all this shit, and it's annoying. I think Edgar Berlanga, in his defense, he could actually catch Jaime Munguia when Jaime Munguia is doing the pressure fighting shit. And that's what I want to know. It's like, all right, if he's going to present this challenge early and actually try to smother Edgar Berlanga, get on the inside, and his work rate is going to be insane, is he going to just walk into something early? And Edgar Berlanga, as we see, still has that power. If he catches him with a right uppercut early on, how's Jaime Munguia going to react to that? I think that's what's going to make the fight fascinating, and I think that's what's going to make a lot of people bet the under. I don't know where the over-under is going to be on rounds, but a lot of people are going to bet the under, and I don't feel like the over-under is going to be very high. Like, I'd be surprised if it's anything past like 8.5 rounds, for example.
I think you know what? I think it goes past 7.
That's why I think 8.5, 7.5 is kind of the line of demarcation there. I could see that actually, but it depends.
So who would you go with in that fight, and how would you have the winner win? Are you going with decision? You go with knockout, and you rolling with Munguia, or are you rolling with your fellow Puerto Rican Berlanga?
I think Munguia should be the favorite and should win that fight, but I don't know. Like, Edgar Berlanga, like, the way he boxed, the way he boxed in this fight, and the way he boxed in his last fight against Jason Quigley, and yes, Euro guys, whatever, not Jaime Munguia, but like, I've seen Jaime Munguia. Like, he needed a knockdown to beat Sergey Derevianchenko. You know what I mean? Like, he has another.
Did we not see what happened with Edgar Berlanga and Steve Rolls? No disrespect, Canadian right here. You know what I'm saying?
The scorecards weren't that close.
No, but still, like,
Jaime Munguia was down and needed a knockdown to beat Sergey Derevianchenko, right? Like, and before that, he even won a questionable decision against, I forget which Euro level fighter it was. I don't know if it was Callum Smith, Liam Smith. It was one of them dudes. I'm forgetting right now. But Jaime Munguia won a decision that was very questionable at best. And like, I think we could risk talking him up a little bit when there's a reason that these guys are perfect for each other. And it's because they're on the same tier. They're both heavily flawed. They're both heavily effective. And I think Edgar could actually win this fight if his chin holds up. And that's the biggest concern for me, is if his chin's going to hold up.
But I think that's why people would bet on the knockout for
Jaime Munguia is not as versatile of a fighter. He's just not. He's going to win the fight one way.
grade or
And,
knockout.
you know,
Two ways.
he's going to win. What was that? Yeah. But I'm saying he's going to win the fight inside or nothing. Whereas Edgar Berlanga could actually, like, if he's able to remain on the outside and keep the jab in his face, maybe he has some more success there. So I'd be tempted to bet on Edgar Berlanga catching him, because I think Jaime Munguia could just walk into something carelessly.
Yeah, and he's defensively irresponsible at times.
That's the other thing. Very irresponsible. Like Edgar Berlanga, this is one of the only guys Edgar Berlanga will have a defensive advantage against. Think about that.
Yeah, but the way that Jaime Munguia fights, like, you know, he's just trying to go and get it. He's going to stalk you. He's going to try to smother you.